Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men ask for the right words to say to be more successful, attractive, and desirable. But I found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines because every man is different. So giving words or scripts would be like giving a tall, thin man a shorter, wider man's pants, or vice versa. The words have to make sense for you and your personality, and there's so much happening beneath the surface that people are responding to. If you're interested in how to become a better lover and leader in your own unique way, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz, or you can text ALIVE to 44144. It only takes a couple minutes and you'll start to get an idea of how you can be both more respected and desired. After you fill it out, we can schedule a time to review your quiz and talk about your specific challenges and desires. So again, go to either shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text ALIVE to 44144. That's ALIVE to 44144. Enjoy this episode of Man Alive. Hello and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm excited to be here today to talk about topics that are close to my heart and working with men around vulnerability and connection. And we're going to look through the lens today of emotional CrossFit, or a gym for your insides, right? A place to go practice that's not for the physical aspect, but for the emotional aspect and how you can actually stay connected in your life. So I'm really grateful to have Dan Doty here today. Dan, thank you for being here.
You're welcome. I'm grateful to be here with you.
And Dan is the CEO and co-founder of Every Man, which is a company that brings men together to exercise their emotions so they can lead more successful, fulfilling lives. And his previous work includes producing and directing outdoor-based TV and film, teaching in a public high school in the Bronx, and spending 600 days in the wild as a wilderness therapy guide for disadvantaged and at-risk young men. Dan has appeared on The Today Show, has been a guest on the acclaimed Joe Rogan podcast, and has been featured in Men's Health magazine. So thank you, first of all, for doing this work for and with men, and for everything that I know it takes to actually, be living it yourself.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't feel like I need to thank you. It's what I love to do. And so thank you though.
Yeah. So one of the things, as I was watching your TED Talk, which I highly recommend if you listening haven't seen it, one of the things that I was appreciating is that you took vulnerability and put it into a framework of what men need to learn it. And you went through, number 1, permission, number 2, direction, and number 3, a place to practice. So I'm curious if you can describe a little bit, about each of those phases, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, sure. I feel like those 3 levels are something you could look at the cultural level, but also specifically on the individual. And the permission part is simple. It's that many men in our culture, I want to say most, but I don't have data to back this up, but many men feel or are still in a mode of living in which emotions and self-expression and self-awareness is not valued and is not seen as carrying value. So the permission,
and is feared, I would say, right?
Absolutely. Feared and reviled or demeaned or dismissed, many things. It's, it's just not the standard American male version, at least not all the way, right?
No, it's a really good way to put it, right? Not the standard American male version. It's not what you see in the media. It's not what you see, on the internet, right? It's you're totally doing this work, and there are some great men doing this work to make it more the norm, but it's not so yet.
100%. So the permission part is literally, that's the outreach part. That's the getting out there. And, those media appearances, which you mentioned, I've been very grateful and felt very lucky to have those opportunities, because literally maybe in the simplest way, I feel like what I and we are trying to do is get out in front of the world and as many people as we can and say, hey guys, so you can still be tough, you can still be strong, you can still be, aggressive when it's appropriate, but guess what? Also, there are these parts of your life where you're just ignoring, you're repressing much of what you do, and guess what? It's hurting a lot of other people. It's actually hurting you. Can we slow down and be smart about this? So that's the permission part. It's just like, and I think that it's amazing. So, now with hundreds or thousands of men that are working with Everyman or been a part of Everyman, that there's a moment of inflection where a man recognizes that it's either there's enough pain pushing him to try something new, or the curiosity, or the acceptance, right? I mean, it's amazing. Once, actually, one of the most incredible things about what's happened so far in the last couple of years with Everyman is that what we hear back from the culture and from men, and I'm sure there's many people that see it and are like, ugh, but what we're hearing in such a massive way is finally, thank you, awesome, and for men and women alike. So
well, and I think, right, I mean, as a woman and having worked with men for a long time and connecting with a lot of women, right, there is a longing that many, many women have for men's vulnerability and emotions. And then there's also the fear on our side of what that means when it shows up, and what do I do, and how do I navigate this? And, and then I see men who have, come in to work with me and have really their whole lives just stuffed it, right? Shoved their emotions down, just been taught, okay, you will be more loved, you will be more wanted if you just keep it all inside. But right? There's that breaking point where I think most men at some point, right, start to look at themselves and realize, oh my God, this hurts, or this is awful, or this is hurting someone else.
Absolutely. And so, moving to the second one, the direction, or maybe even more accurately would be education, is framing this as a skill set and a tool set of all humans have this emotional capacity, this emotional need, and making it just an educational experience, like trying to take out some of the shame and the underlying emotion around emotion, and just saying, hey, you didn't get taught this. It's, we could sit and we could blame people, we could point fingers, all that. And all that is probably some validity to it. But really, honestly, what we have here is a simple process to get in touch with yourself. And when you're in touch with yourself, you have the capacity to be more in touch with other people. And from that state of more connectedness, just literally naturally flows an outpouring of goodness for oneself and for other people. And it's not complicated. It is scary, but it's not complicated. It's very simple.
It's actually quite simple, right?
It's so simple. Well, it's the undoing. And so that's what we do at Everyman, is we have a super simple process. And it's simply that we slow down, we deepen our self-awareness by paying attention to our body and our emotional state. And then we take the leap of sharing it with other guys. That's actually all it takes. I mean, obviously there's nuances and subtleties and you can go many directions, but it's a simple codified way to be present and in touch.
So really just to slow down, to pay attention to yourself, and then to share it. And how do you work with men when, I've had men come in and when I've said, what are you feeling, or what's happening for you? And the response is, I'm good, or I'm fine. Or, it might even be a little bit farther along the line than that, into feeling a little bit of something, but not much.
Well, so we have several different avenues, but you actually just highlighted one, which is really simple and great, which is minimizing and maximizing what we're saying. So we ask men, we give them a simple set of basic emotions: anger, sadness, fear, shame, joy, missing one or two there, but some simples. And we try to keep it rooted in that simple, basic language and help men really identify what those are. And so we make feeling a little of something unacceptable. We say, go back, take out the little, and say it again without the
Oh, right. You can't say, "Oh, I'm real
qualifier.
sad," or I'm feeling
Yeah, it's just, are you sad? I'm sad. Just
uh-huh.
simple, just
Uh-huh.
to the point. I mean, that's one very little sort of technique, but really we model. We do this by modeling, and that is another major part of Everyman that is really catching people's attention and really helping people get through. Because we have, like, even I lead these retreats. I'm the lead facilitator. We got 70 men in a room, but I myself am going through the process also.
Right.
I'm leading by example. And that is, in this emotional realm, it is such an experiential thing. It's hard to learn this stuff from an analytical or intellectual perspective. It actually doesn't work.
No, you can't, right? And I really saw in your TED Talk, I sent it to a group of men I'm working with around, how to have more influence, and part of that's being more emotionally available. And I said, here's an amazing example of a man who is willing to feel deeply and be impacted by his own life and his experiences, and then share them in front of people, so you are modeling that, like you said.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that seems to be universal, right?
Yeah.
So if you got guys in the room who've never done anything like this, or they're hesitant or whatever, I mean, I don't care who you are. If somebody's next to you, opens their mouth and says they're so terrified that their wife is going to leave them, and I'm gripped in fear.
Yeah.
I mean, you will feel that, and that resonance between people. That is the space in which we play. That is the space in which we learn and operate and even create from. And it's this understanding that the experience of our emotions are a deliberate and massive gateway to connection with others. And then when we make that primary, when we slow down enough to hear someone, and more than hear, but feel them, because that's the thing. That's like, we do that. I mean, that is part of being human. And it's, I don't think, I mean, we're not unique in what we're doing exactly here, but we're making that primary, and we're asking each other to let ourselves be impacted by each other. And that's a lot of times for guys who are just getting into this, that is what opens them up. That is what drops them deeper, because somebody else feels something, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh man, okay, me too. Me too. Right. But then they actually have the experience. It's not just the understanding of it, but just like, my God, I'm sad too.
Right. No. And then, I've seen that so many times. And, I've had the good fortune to be in rooms of men who are feeling from each other and being impacted by each other. And I mean, it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced, right? To see one man who, is kind of holding back and being strong or tough in that way of traditional masculinity. And then suddenly, like, it's like, you can tell he starts to feel right from what another man is experiencing. Or in my case, we've had, groups of men and women doing this together too. So
totally.
Yeah, it's such it's profound. And, it is interesting when you were saying before, it's kind of like this normalization. We did not learn this when we were young. I'm so confused that we don't have education when we're young. It's starting to happen, with my son, and your kids will get it right around emotional connection and communication and things that just haven't happened until now, which is shocking.
Well, you're right. It's normalizing it, and it goes back, and it adds to the permission, right? Yes. It supports that permission in a larger way, because I mean, really what it often feels like, and I'm sure you've seen things like this, but many men in one way or another seem to be walking around like holding their breath in, metaphorically speaking, just like there is so much freedom that simply comes from the recognition that I can just be. I can just be what I am. I can feel what I feel. I can allow. I don't have to hold. Like, the amount of holding back men do is Herculean. I mean, it's insane. It's really insane. And the normalization is amazing. I mean, my 2.5-year-old Duke has more emotional awareness than I did when I was probably 22.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that's actually true.
I think it's true too. It's amazing to see, how my son is paying attention to me and how I look, and that I look sad in one moment, or, asking me questions about what I'm feeling. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I was just thinking too, where did I go? There was something around what you were saying where, yeah, the willingness to be impacted by each other. And I just love that you're getting men together in a group, because that also I've seen when I bring men together, there can be that hesitance or that reluctance or that sense of, if I express this, I would think I was weak or I was unmanly or whatever, but I can see another man express it, and I can start to get that that's not true, and then start to realize, oh, those judgments and the layers of thoughts about what I'm feeling are a completely separate realm than just what I'm actually feeling.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
All of that noise piled on top of what's just actually there. It's insane. Yeah, I was in my men's group last night here, and with a younger guy who joined the group about 6 weeks ago, and yeah, it's so beautiful, and it just lights me up all the time to, I won't share his name because we have confidentiality, but I'd share just a little bit about the basic struggle he's been going through, and it's exactly what we're saying. And he'll share how he's feeling, and then they'll go, but well, I don't really want to do that, and then add another layer of complication on top. I'm like, really, again, it's the simple sort of path through. It's just like, hey, slow down, stick with that first thing, just the feeling part, and you don't have to talk about it, but just go there and feel it, and just actually practice. And so it's just like anything else. You can do reps, like you literally practice this stuff, and then it becomes ingrained, and then it starts to make its way into men's lives in a natural way, and opens up relationships with families and partners and children and co-workers. It's just
it's amazing. I mean, one thing I talk with men about, I'm curious if this comes up in your conversations too. There's a way, I mean, at first I like to make space for men to just get messy, right?
Yeah.
There's no right way to express. There's no right way to feel. But I think that a lot of men have come to me with the experience of, well, I had one time where I opened up. Or some men have this, right? I had one time I opened up, I had this experience, I expressed my emotions, it didn't go very well. And so I also like to talk about the difference between having a feeling and dumping a feeling, right?
Sure.
Like that way of, okay, I can recognize I'm a good man, I'm a good person, and I'm feeling sad right now, versus there's something wrong with me, I can't believe it, I'm feeling sad, and I'm gonna, I don't really know what to do with this, so I'm going to kind of dump it out there and hope that you can take care of it, because I can't really take care of it, right?
Got it. Yeah, I haven't thought about that distinction, but yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel, so with the back up just for a second, so if guys have had very few examples of opening up, and the number, kind of like one of the main tools that we have, and we do this in groups, so this is like the third step, the place to practice, right? And I already talked about our men's groups, and they are designed simply that when it's his turn to share, when he has the floor, when he's going into what's up for him, or he's answering a prompt or whatever it is, it's everybody else's responsibility to stay in touch with him. And if they lose track, so we're literally attuning to each other to be able to tell the difference when a guy is in his head and is analyzing and judging and all that stuff, or when a guy is present and then experientially embodied, right? So I'm here, you can feel it. And so it's this amazing skill that we get to give each other real-time feedback all the time, right? And so the dumping of emotion, I feel like, and I don't know, I'm not going to say this with like finality, but my feeling in the moment is that it is emotion wrapped with probably other emotions and judgments and other things, and it feels uncontrollable. And so in that moment, the main thing that I or our groups would intend for a guy to do, okay, again, slow down. Let's stick with the actual experience you're having, and we're gonna affirm your experience, and we're gonna ask you simply to stick with it for as long as you can. And our practice is based on somatic and emotional awareness and how those two interplay. So our bodies are, the avenue or the home of our emotions. And so when we stick with something long enough, it tends to not just, they don't stay, like, emotions aren't designed, I feel, to just like hang out forever, right? They have,
you're resisting them.
Exactly. So that's what we're doing. Like, all right, just hold on, hang on to it, stay with it, let it move. Like, just give yourself over to it. And it's a surrender, but like, let yourself freaking feel what you're feeling. And then let's just trust us. It's going to go somewhere. And it does. So.
And the affirming piece is so important too, right? Especially when there hasn't been that. And so there hasn't been support for that emotional expression to then actually, I love, as a woman, looking into a man's eyes and saying, I'm still here. And actually, I feel closer to you, and I care about you. And actually, you feel really strong to me, or, right?
Yeah.
Any of those affirming, which would be different from you guys. It's so important.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, any thoughts on, for a man who's dipping his toe, listening to this and thinking, wow, I've heard, my partner has said he or she wants me to be more emotional, or I'm kind of getting a sense that I've been stuffed up and holding my breath, or, right? What do you suggest as a first step?
Well, I think they're probably in the right place already, listening to your podcast or listening to this podcast. I feel like the Everyman podcast is another offering we have, which is an attempt to, again, normalize this type of conversation, normalize this type of feeling, honestly, normalize this type of, or this direction of being a man. So I feel like there's a lot of good stuff there to soak up and see if this is, really appropriate or not. I feel like there's starting to be a lot of resources out there. And I think that, well, another thing is that the millennials on our heels, about, I think the stat is something like 93% of millennial males are actively looking for more environments that are emotionally safe and emotionally expressive.
I love that.
So if you're not a millennial and you're older than that, I think there might be just some reckoning or some looking around, or tapping into sort of the zeitgeist of what's happening. I mean, this is definitely entering the cultural sphere now, and I think there's a lot of real shift. I mean, there's massive corporations and all kinds of folks are beginning to take this very, very seriously now. So that's helpful. And then the other thing I'd say is exactly what we're talking about, is recognize that this really simply can be contextualized accurately as a set of skills or a set of tools that we just don't necessarily have access to yet. And I like to think about the way that the medical field has decentralized. I think, if you go back 50, 60 years, you had your doctor, your family doctor, and you would go to them for pretty much anything. And today, when you look out there, there's nutritionists and wellness practices. It's just it's just decentralized. Like, knowledge has sort of leveled out and spread out. And there's people that have niche understandings of things that are all pretty much very clearly understood to be good, good for people. And in one way, So, and the same thing goes with you could call this mental health, you could call it emotional wellness, whatever it is. I mean, if you feel comfortable going to a therapist, do it. If you feel comfortable going to a men's group, do it. Yeah. If like wherever you feel okay. And then I would, just offering Everyman as a resource, is we're really doing everything we can to make this accessible for men of all types, from all backgrounds, all places. And I don't know, just know that you're not alone, and know also that if you develop your emotional capacity or capacity to connect, it has everything to do with all of the bottom lines that you're thinking about all the time.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
So.
And can you say a little bit about maybe what personally has happened for you in your life as a result of being more emotionally available, being more embodied? What are you seeing in your life?
Yeah. So I have a better marriage than I ever thought was possible. I have a deeper and more loving and full relationship with my wife than I honestly didn't know this kind of thing was available. I have a relationship with my two young boys that, again, it's wildly, overwhelmingly fulfilling. Like it's insane. I have just in this last year reconnected with my father, we've always loved each other. He's always been a supporter, and vice versa. But he came on a retreat this year after many years of me inviting him into events. And he's gone from someone that I could hardly stand to be around to honestly being one of my best friends. And it's
that's inspiring.
Yeah, and it's not going away. It's just like we did we did something together that was fundamentally important.
Yes.
And I can keep going here. I mean, like this organization and all of my colleagues, there is complete beautiful transparency and honesty and trust, and just it's amazing. The support and the care and the love and the quality of the individuals in my life. Yeah, if human connection were money, I'd be the probably one of the richest men in the world.
Okay, I love this. Can you give an example too? Like, say you're having something that's coming up for you emotionally, whether you can choose, right, whether it's with your wife or with a colleague or something, but you're feeling some kind of emotion in the midst of, there's this thing to accomplish, or we've got kids and we've got other things going on here. How have you set it up so that you could actually bring that to the people close to you?
Yeah, just so I make sure I get that clear. So how do I set up my own system for myself to deal with my emotions amidst busy life? Is that the question?
Yeah, I want a man listening to kind of get, if I go home to my partner and I'm starting to feel something that's emotional and I'm a little scared to share it, or there are other things going on, how do I set myself up to make it safer?
Absolutely. So I think my main strategy for myself is to never really stuff for very long. Like if something is very real for me, if a feeling is there, I will either engage who I'm with and just say it, just like, and not even to hang on it, not to process it, but just to recognize it, just to say it. Like, I'm incredibly angry right now and this isn't okay. And I recognize we have to, get this deal done and we have to work this out. But I feel that much of my life, a lot of the issues, a lot of the struggle came from the, I can't feel that now, so I'm going to pack it in there. I'll go to the gym later. Yeah. And when I'm at the gym, I'll work it out. My anger will come out. And I get it. There's a like we can set ourselves up in that way. We can have catharsis. We can meditate. We can, whatever we do to take care of ourselves. But and that's helpful. And I think that's good. And I think I do that in ways, but then I believe that beyond that, there is a way to stay in touch and in flow with things so that things don't necessarily build up. And it'd be total bullshit for me to say that things didn't build up, because of course they do. But to me, it's the immediacy of addressing, and this has taken a lot of work on my part. But even without somebody there, what I've been working with even recently is, so I'll feel something and then I'll want to close down. I'll want to kind of freeze. I'll notice that happening. I'm like, I've done it. I'm like, all right, you've done this enough. Slow down, feel it. And I'll just like kind of, is this subterranean type of clenching, like muscle clenching that there is, and it's hard to talk about and it's hard to figure out how to work with, but it's just like, no, wait, I'm going to feel this, and then I'll feel it and then I'll move on. you know, and then there's also this connection between the emotions and our feelings and the tasks at hand, and there's this way
Yeah.
to, in a sense, use them as fuel, use them as help, as motion forward. I feel like that's a big missing understanding, or a missing link too, is that emotions aren't just getting in the way of us getting things done. They're actually, when tapped appropriately, they are a source of rocket fuel.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I was just thinking back to this morning too, and I have a practice with my partner where we, really inquire into the moment and what's happening and what's showing up. And part of what showed up for me this morning was something he said. I had this moment of, oh my God, I can't do anything right. And I felt sad and I felt scared. And it was so clear to me that it wasn't anything about, it was kind of pinged by him, but it was so much about my family when I was young and all of that. And so, for me, I had this sense of like, oh my God, this is the last thing I want to share in this moment. I don't want to show him that I'm starting to cry and I'm feeling emotional, because I think this looks, whatever way it was in that moment, like I don't look very evolved, I don't look very strong.
Sure.
So, and I did share it. And I think I'm just sharing this story because I also want to be a voice of, it's not just men who are going through this. And I think that can actually make it safer sometimes, right? Like when I started leading workshops for women after leading workshops for men, I thought, oh, well, women are going to do it's just going to be easy for them. We're going to have to do something very different than helping men get in touch with their emotions. The women are already going to be in touch with them. And I actually found that it was way more similar than I had expected it to be.
It is quite similar, isn't it?
Yeah. And so, I speak about this too, to say, like, when you're in front of another human being and, if that human being is a woman, there are so many places of shame and fear, and I shouldn't be emotional and I should be able to be Wonder Woman and do it all. And so then there's just a recognition too of that shared humanity that I think makes it safer to actually feel what we're feeling.
100%. Yeah, I think it would be really remiss to think that men are the the sole holders of poor emotional awareness, right? I think that's just it. And I think it is valid and helpful. Well, sometimes there's difference and sometimes there's not. Actually,
right. It is true that men are less supported to be
yes,
emotional and less taught that it's okay, and it really does go against masculinity. So I'm not trying to take that part away.
yeah,
I just want to speak to the, look across and actually look into someone's eyes and recognize that no matter what that person's showing, there's vulnerability in there.
100%. Yeah. One of the more beautiful outpourings of emotion I've ever seen was we moved to California from Montana, but when we were in Montana, we did a group. One of the nights of our group, we had women and men. We invited our partners and friends to come and join us. And there was this young woman that, it was like, we got this group of guys, we've been meeting for almost 2 years, and we've really dialed in, our emotions, and really can share. And still it's a little laborious sometimes, like guys are just kind of like,
it's a little dry.
Well, yeah, it's a little stiff. But this young woman stepped up, and she just in the matter of probably 4 or 5 minutes, she was sobbing and she was laughing, and it was like the most wild demonstration of a range of human emotion. And we all kind of just sat there and we're like, holy crap, that's insane. We'd never quite seen that from any guy. But it was so beautiful.
Love it. Well, again, I know you said, you don't necessarily want the thank you, but I do really appreciate, you feel like a translator to me, or you're, it's like a sensei, right? This kind and wise teacher of, hey, this is a part of you, and it's not a part to be shoved away, and really reminding the world that there's a lot of pain when that happens. And I think you said I had been taking notes one day about a talk I was giving, and I was really getting like, oh, when men hurt, they hurt themselves or others. And then I heard your TED talk, and I think you basically said almost the same thing, right? It's like, getting that we can't let men walk around in the world unsupported and not make it safe to feel.
Yeah, it's super destructive. And then the other side of that coin is my core message to men right now in this moment is you have no idea the beauty that is so close to you right now. Like the amount of love, the amount of connection, the amount of support, like you don't have any idea how near at hand that is. And I think that is, I mean, it's the most gratifying thing in the world to work with a man in any capacity and watch them open that door and receive others and give to others. And it's beautiful.
Thank you. What do you want to leave men with, and how can they find you?
What I would leave them with is just get over yourself and do something new. And where they can find us is everyman.com, and the second E in every is gone, so it's everyman.com. We got a podcast. Google us. I would say? Find the Men's Health article first. It was an article came out 3 weeks ago. A writer named Nate Green. It is the most accurate and true to life example of what we do, and I'm so proud that it's in the world. I'm so
nice. We can put the link in the podcast too.
Yeah, I do, and I feel like that is the most, because that's a question a lot of men have, and women. It's like, okay, I hear it, I like the idea of this, but what do you actually do? Yeah. That's what everybody always asks, and this article is just simply the best representation of what it actually is. So that's where I would send people first, actually.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.